This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Let's get a toast in.
Who's leading the toast? I'd like to make a toast to honest conversations, real conversations, but respectful conversations. Cheers.
Like it.
Cheers.
Assholes. This is Watch Podcast, everyday guys doing shit. Once again, I got my guys in here again. How we doing, fellas?
What's up, man? I'm real good.
You doing all right?
Yep.
Jamelle, what you pouring over there?
I am pouring some water right now because I am on a strict no alcohol diet
You could
during
have
the
just
week.
said water.
I need to explain everything.
I just
whole
want
life
everybody
story.
to understand. I understand we should be drinking right now, but I'm keeping my slim and trim going
Could have
on.
just said, I made a little something over here, and we could have moved on. We didn't need to make
I
it
would
a
like
thing.
the audience to know.
They don't care. What's going
Here
on
we
with
go.
you, man?
Shit, man, just living. About to start this basketball season back up, so that's about to
Oh,
be.
y'all had a little break, huh?
Yeah, I let the girls breathe a little bit. They about to
Soft.
They about to
Soft.
be mad when we go back next week, though. But and we about to go up a division, so
Are you scared?
I am. I'm B100, so
He started the season
Y'all got like
off
10
wrong.
seasons a year, don't you?
I mean it's all year. But we sixth graders, though. We about to play seventh grade.
Ah.
And my daughter and this other girl's fifth grade, so it's about to be a little rude awakening, probably.
Put your big girl
Growth.
pants on.
Hey, it's time to go, man.
Time for growth.
Fuck that shit, let's get it.
All right, y'all. This one we're gonna do it a little different. We got a special guest. You know, we've always had an internal opinion throughout this whole pod, and I thought maybe it'd be good to get something different, get a different voice in there. So to my right, I want y'all to introduce Yolo. That man right here is a non-binary, award-winning writer. He's a healing justice worker, and then does yoga.
Damn, you mad? Out of everything.
That would call me off guard. And he is the founder and executive director of Beam, Black Emotional Mental Health Collective. Tell us a little bit more about it, my man.
Man, talking about Beam. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here to be in conversation. You know, Beam is essentially, we're a nonprofit organization. We do three different things. One is training. We basically train folks, coaches, teachers, activists, barbers, stylists on how to respond to mental health in Black communities. And so we recognize that in our communities that it ain't often a social worker or a therapist who's on the front lines. It's often the teachers, the parents, the coaches. They're often on the front lines. So we give them skills to be able to support folks, but also be able to help them get into care if they need care, right? So we do that. We also do grant making, giving out a lot of money and resources. Like we have our Black Parent Support Fund. We gave out money to Black fathers, 50 Black fathers this last Father's Day, $300, just to giving out to folks, because we recognize money is also a healer, and also economic anxiety is real. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Man.
That last one.
No bullshit. There you go, coach.
Hey, as soon as he said it, like, shit, he's telling the truth, because parents are there, but we deal with a little bit more than, they do, because kids might not want to speak so much to their kids or just opening up. And I get what he's saying. Like, somebody needs to tell me, like, dude, calm down, breathe. You know what I mean? But I definitely get that.
And we had a conversation before about being a coach. Like, there's stuff that your kids will tell you that they won't tell their parents.
Absolutely.
And you're usually, like Yolo was saying, the first line of defense or the first person they can go to. So it's big to be able to have that resource coming from Beam.
And you all gonna clock it oftentimes, sometimes for the parents will, right? Like if you at sports games with them, you're like training with them, so you're gonna see certain parts of them that their parents ain't gonna see when they come at home. And so you're like, wait a second, I'm noticing like a change in their behavior. I'm noticing they're a little erratic or whatever's going on. Like we feel like if more coaches and teachers have the ability to be able to clock that, and there's some resources to connect them to, that can like prevent a lot of like crisis we see happening in a lot of schools, right? You know what I mean? So it's really important for it to be what we try to build up the whole village. Like it's important, of course, to have social workers and therapists, but all of us need to have something in our tool belt so we know how to be like, oh, let me figure out what this is, let me support someone, even if it's limited, of course, compared to like a social worker or a therapist.
Spell that for me so I can get on that.
Get it out there, would it?
What is
Yeah.
the organ? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like Beam, like a ray of light, and it's Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective.
BEAM.
Yeah.
BEAM, sounding a lot
M?
better.
M.
Yeah, beam, like a light beam.
Exactly.
Shine bright. I'm sorry.
Okay, it was there.
We don't need me to say that.
But all jokes aside, I think he brought up a good point about kids going to their parents and how to act in certain situations, which brings me to what I wanted to talk about today with male learning how to be a young black male growing up in this world, how to be yourselves, whether it be in work, in school, on football field, on the basketball field, and things like that. And us all being young black men, some of us older than others.
You older than me. What you talking about?
I don't know who he's talking about, but shit.
Didn't want to put nobody out there. Just saying. But no, growing up being a black man in this world is different in all aspects of life. And I think that's great that we have our guest Yolo here, because he has a way of talking to the kids and the youth and the males and all types of things on some of the stuff that we have to deal with. So, Jamelle, if I ask you about your opinion on black masculinity, how would you respond to that?
I mean, that's a big question. I think that black masculinity has a very strong place in American culture. I think a lot of people are afraid of it. Historically, that's been proven right.
Well, afraid of it?
Of black masculinity, absolutely.
Why, before you go deeper?
Because white people have been scared of niggas for a long time.
I asked you wrong.
I'm gonna dial it back just a minute. So, hey, I'm not gonna get on my activist soapbox right now. But I also think that there is toxic masculinity, and that's still true, especially in the black community, and it's kind of what we're talking about here today. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man. I think it's good to have open and honest conversations, like I said during the toast, to make sure that we're not leaving anybody out of the conversation.
And so that's why I think it's good with Yolo being here with open and honest conversations. That's one thing I think we lose growing up, and I think mainly in young black males, you get put into a box that you can't say this and you can't say that. So like Dre, you got a young black kid that you're going to be raising. What do you think?
Man, that term black masculinity is, I want to kind of touch on what you said, Jay, is white folks fear black masculinity. I see they fear black empowerment. As far as what masculinity is, that can really change on your social group or where you come from. So let's speak in this terms of black males in America, right? I think we've been forced into, a role as head of the families and to protect our families. Historically, then that's been attacked. So how I want to raise my kid is, one, teach them the history, the whole history, teach them the way things were, teach them the way things are, but I also want to go deeper into why things are the way they are. So it's tricky to, we live in a world of gray and everything's nuanced. I want to provide him with tools to navigate society and to navigate situations he might find himself in.
Cutter. So with you have a young black son growing up in a house full of women. How different will that be for you?
I mean, it's different every day because, him being a young black man in that house full of women, the tendencies he sees every day, he's going to sometime live by them. Not so much like that, but believe me, I've been asked, like, why can't I play with dolls? Okay. But I'm not saying you can't. Just make sure you know how you're playing with the doll, like, type of shit like that, instead of don't just grab it and just do what your sister's doing with it. It's a different aspect of how you're going to play with the doll and how she's going to play with the doll. Like, dress it up. That's cool and all that if y'all playing house, because that's all I hear all day long is house. Like, who's the mom, who's the dad? So, you know what I'm saying? As long as I think if I just let him know, just be him, no matter what. I don't see nothing wrong with how everyone else sees it, but in my house it's crazy because there's times when I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, you're crying about that? Right. But then you don't want to be like, you say a name and then he's like, well, that's what I am now, because he runs with shit. You know what I mean? Like, he's a crybaby or a sis. He's gonna say it a lot. Like, she called me that. Am I? Like, no, you know what I mean? So you kind of break it down on what it is and how to be, but in the long run, he's going to determine what he wants and how he's going to live his life no matter what. I can only guide him in certain ways.
So Yellow, like I like to do normally is like I'll usually bring up something and I'll go around the table because like in a sense I feel like I'm learning because I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't have the certain lifestyle that they live, and I'm usually asking like, hey, tell me about this, what would you do in this situation? So you got a good brief view of some of the values and views that they have. What do you think?
When I think about masculinity, like what masculinity is, it's a set of ideas and beliefs and behaviors that we associate with men, but aren't always just about men, right? And those ideas, beliefs, and behaviors look really common across many cultures, right? Sometimes they're connected to, one, the idea that to be masculine is to be sparse in your emotionality, right? One is to be rigid in your body movement, you're stoic, right? Another one is to be economic provider or to be in charge and authority, right? To dominate. And those are the qualities that I see connected to masculinity across cultures, right? And so, when I think about black masculinity, you have those qualities also kind of shaped and formed by white supremacy and racism, right? How white people imagined us and taught us we were, and then the ways in which that gets exaggerated or kind of distorted by white supremacy, right? It dehumanizes us in a certain sense. So I think about those ideas, beliefs, and behaviors that shape who we are, that shape how we are, how we're even socialized. Think about when you're born as a black man or perceived to be a black man or child in this country, you very early on get the message, thinking about it from a mental health perspective, you have to shut down and cut off your emotions, right? Cut down your feelings, right? I often tell a story about my godson Dante, who's now in college, and I'll never forget, he was learning how to walk. He fell from learning how to walk, and I picked him up, and he was crying. He was like, this is a little baby, right, Tyler? And his dad comes in out of nowhere, grabs him, and says, he's gonna be a punk. put him down, right? You got to let him cry. And, I'm thinking he don't even know how to walk yet. He got to learn how to be a man. He's talking about he got to be a man. He can't even walk yet. He can't poop in a pamper. Yeah. What's going on that it starts so early? But if he was a little girl and I did that, there would have never been any kind of conversation about me comforting the little girl, right? Right. It would have been okay. And so I think about how that starts really early with us. Mm-hmm. But the consequences of that is, you're taught to shut off your feelings and your emotions. Mm-hmm. And then you're growing up in a society that is hostile towards you, mm-hmm. that is racist, that is homophobic, that is all these things, right? How do you express that? How do you deal with that? Mm-hmm. When you're 35, you're 50 years old, and all your life it was called to shut it down, swallow it, mm-hmm. from when you were a baby. And now the only emotions you were told to have, which I say with many masculine spaces, is you can be angry or horny, anything else is suspect. Right? Right? And so then we wonder why so many black men, when we look at depression, when we look at anxiety, when we look at suicide rates, because black men are still human. We need the whole range of your emotions, but the world has taught us you don't get the full range. It's not okay. And we've also been taught to fear the range in ourselves, right?
It's too late, it all builds up. Right. That's when you explode.
Yeah, you get legacy. Go ahead, Drag.
And so it gets where I kind of see that is, again, the why, right? So why were we taught not to be emotional? What was the consequence if we were emotional? You get fucked up or you die. Right? So it's kind of like a survival tactic. You want to stay alive, shut the fuck up.
Just
don't cry because there's consequences with that. So then you have this paradox is, well, we know that's wrong. We know it's traumatic. So we got to break that down. But then if you break down black masculinity, now you're attacking black masculinity.
I love that you brought in the piece about that it is about protective, right? So so I always say when Dante's father Keith came in and pulled him out, people might go oh, that's homophobic and all this stuff. We can hold that conversation. I'm gonna put that aside for a minute. I want to also hold that Keith felt like he is protecting his son, preparing him for a hostile world where he will constantly get attacked, berated, dismissed, and belittled. And his understanding of how to cope with that, the only way he knows how to cope with that is to shut the emotional side down. Now, what we have to do as we kind of grow and we're evolving is understanding that a way to help our young people learn how to cope with that is not to shut it down, but to learn how to breathe into it and move around and expand it, to feel it and to not let it be, be all of what you are. You know what I mean? And that's new because our parents, our generation, they come from generations, it's about survival.
Right.
And so I think that's so important to lift
Yeah,
up.
I think that you said it right there. So, like, for example, for me, I was raised by a woman. So I think in her case, I'm raising a boy, I need to raise him and be a man. So, like, stop crying, all those things, that conversation comes up because I think she's like, I got to teach him how to be a man. And then if let's say I was raised with a father, I think his was like, you're going to be a man, you're going to be my, like he said, this brute, stoic, like, I got to be like this all the time. It's just what you need to know because our parents, men had to be like strong, they went through all that, the butt end of like the racism part in the 60s and stuff like that because they grew up in that. So that's all they know is the white man's going to hate you, the world's going to be hard, you need to be this or you need to be that. And then the women's like, well, I'm a single mom, so I have to figure out how to make my boy a man. So I got to do everything manly that I see on TV, and they forget, you still got a kid there that's being influenced by things around the world. They got things inside that they want to deal with that they don't know if they can talk to, because if my dad sees that I'm being too less manly, I'm going to get in trouble. My mom sees that, what are you crying for? I'm going to get in trouble. So then they start bottling up. And I think it started getting to a place where he wanted to put to the side, but it goes into a sexuality thing. Like, as you start to grow, you get taught by parents, society, or wherever it may be, I need to be like this. And then that opens up a whole conversation where we can roll into next, where I want you to get back into your bag, what you was about to get into, where you pushed to the side. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear, coming from a therapeutic role and things like that, how would you address a kid growing up in a household and he or she doesn't know how to say, no, I don't like that.
You're talking about sexuality.
And I don't agree with this way. So my dad's teaching me, for example, his son has grown up in a house for all women. Maybe that's all he sees, that's all he knows. He might feel one thing, but he sees another. And there's that confusion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
yeah, I think it's important to name that all of us at this table, all of us who are born black men in this country, who are perceived to be black men, have all been taught that one of the most despicable and undesirable things you can be is to be gay. And that is what black gay men struggle with, and it shows up in relationships with, and that's what black straight men struggle with in terms of like, people always talking about, well, why these guys always like, at least I ain't no faggot, at least I ain't this, etc. Because all your life you've been taught that is the most disgusting and unfortunate thing to be. And so that in of itself kind of meets this place where, as human beings, people have a whole range of sexual desires, pulls, and expressions, but you've been taught this message that you are less than. You get it not only from community, you might get it from religious institutions as well. And so in that moment, all these systems create this distress and this violence, right? It creates the violence where I'm walking on the street and a black straight brother sees me, and what I represent is everything that you've been, so like you see me, I represent everything you've been taught to beat down in yourself. And so your reaction to me is that you want to beat me down because maybe I'm wearing makeup, because maybe I look feminine, because you were taught that is not acceptable. And so then when we think about homophobic, transphobic violence, we're talking about the trigger. I'm going to do to you what was done to me when I picked up the Barbie doll. I'm going to do it to you what was done to me when I had my limp wrist, right? It's a pattern of trauma that continues, right?
Something that was taught, like you said.
Exactly.
When I see something, oh shit, my mom told me, or my dad told me, or my pastor told me, that's wrong. All right, attack. And that's like, I want to know why. Like, why is it that is the direction that you're taught? You know what I mean? I know I don't know it, but as a father, I'm pretty sure you want your son to be something, that you've been taught of what is right or wrong. But when the kid starts to veer off on what you didn't expect, shouldn't there be more of a, well, help me understand why? But before we go get that deep into it, Jamelle, you have to deal with 1 million black kids every day. Do you ever come across these things?
I come across things like this all the time. Transgender kids who are non-binary, kids who are gay or queer is the word I should be using. And for me, there is a rash of people not feeling welcomed, and then that leads to, honestly, suicide. And for me, I would be devastated if any one of my kids killed themselves because they didn't feel comfortable. So my biggest thing I tell people all the time, I don't care how, I shouldn't say I don't care, but I don't care how you identify. I don't care if you want to change your name, if you change your pronouns, whatever you do, I want to still be accepting for you, because my biggest thing is that I want you to feel comfortable around me, because there's a lot of spaces that you don't feel comfortable in. And Yolo and I have had this conversation where, like, he was just saying, like, we were taught from the very beginning, the worst thing that you can be is gay. So if that is true at home, true at the barbershop, true at school, how is that kid supposed to feel when they go anywhere? Like, they might be questioning their identity and whatever, and then, shit, I just gotta go get a haircut. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of faggots on the corner. How the fuck are you supposed to deal with that, right? So when you come to school, you know Mr. Austin is always gonna be the one, like, I know I feel comfortable with that, and that's the biggest thing for me.
You know, it's powerful because the Trevor Project, which is a nonprofit organization, did a research study on black and LGBTQ kids, and they showed that, I'm going to quote the statistic, I'm going to try to quote it correctly, but essentially what it was reporting is that LGBTQ kids who had one affirming adult in their life, they had like 80% less likelihood of suicidality, right? So you're talking about like just one adult in my life who says it's okay for me to be who I am dramatically reduces the likelihood of me committing suicide.
All it takes is they have one place.
And all it takes is to have one.
I may not know how to, I might not use the right pronouns, I might not say the right thing or whatever, but I know that it's like, hey, I just want to make sure that you feel cool here, right?
And that's one thing, like, to say, don't know use the right pronouns, how to navigate in that space as it's coming more and more in the mainstream society, is some folks it's uncomfortable to learn something new, especially, you know, like I said, we old, we're set in our ways. We ain't like old man 67 in our ways, but still, like, something new, like, God damn, I got to learn how to approach this person, how to talk to this person. It's not going to be the same as that. It takes a lot for someone to change the way they are, but also I think even more, if we've all been taught, and for the most part hatred is taught, right? If we've all been taught this way, it takes a big person to be able to accept a challenge to their way of thinking.
Absolutely.
And see, with that one, Dre, I'm gonna put it on both sides too, because I think it takes a big man, big woman, big person to accept this is going to be different. But on the other end, it takes, hey, this is how I like this now. This is where I am now. It takes a lot then in both ends to just attack than teach. Because I think we don't teach anyone from a different, so like if a white man came up to me making comments or things like that, I could just fire off, motherfucker, who you talking to, don't call me this and this.
I prefer it that way.
Be like, I could just be like, yo, it's this, don't do this, don't do this. If you go into this type of environment, it's dangerous. Please don't be that way. And I think there's not enough communication on all across the board. I think there's just this first reaction to attack. And like, I think in today's society, a lot's changing. And I think we need to give all parties the time to learn and grow. And then, you know, there's gonna be a point when some people are gonna be like, fuck it.
But I think, my bad, but when you're talking about the attacking part, like, how would I know how to speak to someone?
That's
like to my kids.
That's the conversation.
So all I know how to do is attack. I don't know how to be like, well, I seen how they did it, and you know, this is how maybe you should look at other, you know, expectations about yourself or about others. But that attack, it's easier to do.
And it's what you know.
That's what we all know.
It's just attack. Like, I don't like that person. Why? Because you see how they dress? It's something that you could just agree with. You're never going to be like, damn, that motherfucker look nice. You know what I mean? Because even if I say, and you know me, like, I'll say like, dude, you look, yeah, nigga, where you going? You look kind of nice. Yeah. No homo though. You know what I'm saying? But that's just something that we're built around saying. It doesn't have no harmful, but it's just like, if I don't say it, that motherfucker might be like, come on, you know what I mean? But it has nothing to do with it, but it's just what you're used to, and that's not right. But
I would love to hear your thoughts on it, because we do it all the time, pause or no homo or whatever like that.
Hold on, before we get there, go ahead, say what you was about to say before we get to because we're going to get to that next.
I don't think it's necessarily, well, I like to think about it less as like if it's right or wrong, but I'm curious about what it's speaking to, the phenomena, right? So we live in a culture where there is a lot of anxiety around male-to-male affection and desirability, right? And we don't know how to understand male-to-male affection and male-to-male desire outside of sex, right? So we think it's all, so like I always give this example of my friend Emmanuel, who's from Ghana, straight guy. Never forget, we were in college in Wadah State University. Emmanuel was cool, whatever, we were going to Walmart. I can't even tell the story without like busting out laughing. And then at one point he just like grabs my hand and holds hand. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Why you lushing my mind? We gonna get killed and shot up in here. But where he came from, holding hand was not a marker of being gay. There was still homophobia, but men holding hands and dancing in the clubs, that's something that was very commonplace there. That wasn't what they read as gay, right? Like, you know what I mean? So thinking about that piece is like, he didn't have that fear of that. In our culture, there is this deep fear. We don't understand that, like, you know what, I might want to be close to my frat brother or to another man, like to be hugged, to be supported and validated, and that's not gay. And there's this anxiety that I think a lot of black men feel to always constantly prove that you're not gay, to prove that you're man, because it's not gay, but it's also like masculine, that I'm man enough. You know what I mean? And so that's where the no homo and the pause comes in. It's like, I want to show that I have love for you, Jamelle. I want to show that I have love for you, KP, but I don't want you to think that it's that, because there's a fear that like somehow you have to do that, as if we don't have a lot of representations. I think it's a lot of because of we have a collective, what I call a collective father wound as black folks. You know what I mean? Where we are very deeply afraid of male affection and uncomfortable with it. And so now we're trying to get more of our kids comfortable with it. Like, you know what I mean?
But what you said, you're not comfortable. So do you think in the household with your father, if he was loved, like showed you so much affection, I think that would determine a lot. I could show you affection, but I could also be hard.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think that boundary sometimes leaves a kid like, what the fuck do I do? Because my dad shows me so much love, but then we outside somewhere and he's like, motherfucker, don't do that.
But I think the way it can show is that, I think the invitation is to show our children that regardless of gender, you have a range of emotions. That like there's a time to be soft, a time to be hard, a time to cry, a time to be pissed, a time to defend yourself. And I think that we often because I think we gotta be honest, like, you know, as black folks, we come out of traumatized communities, generations of folks who've been through so much. So of course our dads only know one way, because that's what they had to do to survive. They didn't have spaces to be safe. And so therefore they didn't teach us that. So now we're trying to learn it, and it is uncomfortable. It's weird. It's like, you want me to cry about this? Like, you know what I mean? We're talking about this.
But with male-on-man affection, it's like you said, as a father, shouldn't you be able to hug your son so he can see that it's okay to hug another man and know this isn't about a sexual thing?
I think the question there isn't just father to son, but if
brother to brother,
but like Dre comes over to the house and I give him a hug, I think it's important for my son to see that,
it's okay.
As opposed to just like,
what's up?
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? It's okay to be so physical affection. You know what I'm saying?
And it's so funny too, because I mean, you all wouldn't know this, but like in the black gay men's community, affection is, this conversation around affection is still very similar. Like you have a lot of black men say like, well, you know, we ain't really affectionate in a relationship. We don't do the PDA and touch. We're like, but y'all are two niggas in a relationship. Like, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean?
So you have to show
some of the anxiety is still present, even though like these are two gay men. Like, you know, and there's still the kind of like, oh, we can't be looking like that. Like, you know what I mean? It still exists. It's because it's all.
Still not, I mean, you're accepted, but you still know that I'm still not accepted, so I still have to play. It's kind of like playing a role.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way.
And I think that's what it's the growth. It's up to us to walk, like you said. I need to be able to walk in and be like, Dre, you look good. What's going on? Or Jamelle, let me get a hug or something like that. Which is weird because like in football, they would smack each other on the butt and stuff like that. And it's just like, we're little stuff, like we can hug and do things in the football field, but if we left and I did the same thing.
That's what pisses me off about this shit, because you're about toxic masculinity and the worst thing you could be is gay, and see all these people on TV talking bad about the shit, and then we're like, hey, man, we was in the locker room and y'all motherfuckers did some shit. Don't tell me about
it. Even because I know majority of us want to know about you playing sports and shit in college. But I mean, even that first time, my freshman year, when it was like after practice, like go take a shower, like what, nigga? Or even in the dorms, it's like. But you know, you have to grow into that person. I don't. If a motherfucker's looking, that's on him. I mean, I'm not bashing him, but that was scary for me. I'm not gonna lie. That first time, I was like, ah, shit, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Like,
me
but
too.
it's not so much of
But that's-
worrying about what someone.
Stay right there though, Cutter, because like that's what I mean about being taught. Why were you so like, oh shit, I'm in a room? You know what
I think it's twofold though. It's uncomfortable to be naked around
Of
people you
course,
don't
that's
know,
true, of
right?
course.
But two, there's also that the added aspect of like, shit, like they might be thinking I'm gay. I don't
Yeah.
want to be gay. I
And
don't want
then-
them to, you know what I'm saying?
And I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, like white boys don't give a fuck. Them
don't.
niggas used to just drop their
go.
shit
They
like,
don't
nigga,
give a
let's go. And then
shit.
it's like, damn, well, if he don't give a fuck,
Yeah.
why should I care? Because all I'm doing is going to take a shower. But it was
taught.
something that we wasn't taught younger, like in middle school or in high school. Motherfucker, you could take a shower in here, and then you're worried
That's
about
it.
yourself.
Yeah.
Don't worry about nobody else.
Or just it's not attached to something sexual.
Yeah.
Which is what's crazy is when there's no, I'm about to steal your shit. But like on can I go to TV?
Yeah.
It's like on TV, like the whole Bert and Ernie shit. Where it's like, oh, they can't be gay and living together and everything. Like y'all show heterosexual relationships all the time. It's not that. But if it's Bert and Ernie, all of a sudden now it goes to being sexual.
And that's, I think, what Dre's getting at is just that, you know, this is what I've been told this many, many times is that TV is trying to sexualize everything. I'll give the example. The new Buzz Lightyear movie just got trashed. This is fucking Buzz Lightyear. So I guess there's a character on there who's gay. And I guess everyone went up in arms. Why are you trying to teach our kids this? And why are you trying to teach our kids that? And we're just like,
It's life.
it's life. This is what's going on in the world.
Or-
It's a cartoon.
Or we're not even trying to teach them. It's just
This is the
This
story.
it's just a story, right? Like, why are you making it such a big, like, why do you sexualize it? But I think, like, what Yolo was saying is, like, it always has to come back to sexualization when it's anything that's gay or queer.
And then it's also like you said, like in many white communities, that anxiety is different or it doesn't exist in the same way. You go to other cultures, like I think about like my experience with like Dominican men, like, you know, there's a joke that gay men say, they'd be like, is he gay or is he Dominican? And, they say, and that joke is because Dominican men are generally very affectionate,
Correct.
right? So I have many Dominican friends in like New York, and they be like, yo, Esmo, they be like, what's up, man? They cool. And they know you gay. They're not bothered. But they had a different kind of socialization around it than what many African American men have had around like that piece and those messaging, right?
What I see a lot is, because I mean, we have a lot of lesbian friends. So I get it a lot, like from my kids, like, is that a boy? You know what I mean? And then it's like, that fucks up their mind because why isn't she dressed like a girl even though she's probably with a girl? But why does she want to, you know what I mean? Why do you have to look like that in order to be gay?
So
Or
with that right
something?
there, I think that's kind of what we're talking about with the teaching piece. Like, I think a lot of people freaked out about Buzz Lightyear because they don't want their kid to see that.
And they're
So
watching
I
it.
think in a parent's household, when is that a boy, you can be like, no, that's a girl. This is what, like, I don't know how to say it to a kid, but that could be a starting point.
Yeah.
Say, hey, this is what's, go ask, or something, I don't know.
But to your point, I think it's an uncomfortable conversation for the parents,
Yeah.
Yes,
right?
that's
So
what I
if
was
it's
saying,
just like,
Yes.
oh, don't teach my kid this because now I got to have the conversation and I'm not ready to have that
There it
conversation.
is.
Because the kids aren't bothered. The kids aren't bothered by it. You talk to a lot of these young, even like some of the middle school kids that were, I'll be like, y'all know more than I know. Like, you know, they be like, they just understand, okay, oh, she's a girl, but she likes to dress like this. Oh, I like to dress like that too with a fitted cap and stuff. Okay, they get it. But we're uncomfortable because we're just like, oh my God, like, what are we going to say? How are we going to do it? Are we going to say the right thing? Because we didn't grow up in that generation where those conversations were like surfaced in the same way.
Right. And go ahead.
I'm gonna go back to just the lesbians because I coach girls basketball. So and I'm at a point now where it's like, damn, all y'all do is hug each other. And you know what I mean? And I know how the world is set up now. It's fine for little girls to be like that. Now, if I was coaching a boys basketball, seeing them hemped up, you know, so much, it'd be like, what the fuck? But I don't. I say it to myself all the time, like, do I need to start me as a parent going back to what as a coach being like, I'm seeing this, not the parents. So how do I react, and do I say something to them like, I'm not tripping y'all like that, but do y'all know, you know, the aspects of being hugged up all the time like that? Do you guys really think? Do you guys like each other, or y'all just being friends? And I had a parent tell me like, they just kids, and a lot of it is they're going to middle school now, so usually they're just around just all girls. Now they're about to be around a whole lot of more boys. They're older, even with the boys. They're about to, I told my little cousin, like, dude, you're about to be around a whole bunch of girls, not just boys. You're going to have to open up too, besides opening up to boys, because now you're comfortable opening up to your friends, but now you're not so much opening up to a girl.
I want to ask, so while you're on that, girls growing up and seeing boys, LeBrons, the Jordans, and things like that, and they start to act, well, I'm supposed to be like that in order to be good. So I think that goes back to like what they see on TV, and like I think that's why a lot of parents are like, I don't want my daughter doing this because I don't want her to start going this route, or I don't want my boy doing this because they don't want to go this route. It's just like too many commercials and TV shows and players kissing each other and stuff like that, and like. I personally think it's crazy that a girl can get put in that category because she plays basketball, because I personally think some of the finest women are in the WNBA. And I done seen a few of them, and I'm just like, God damn, she fine. But then she takes her jersey off and puts on a dress, and it's like a totally different thing. And then I start asking myself, I'm like, why am I looking at her differently? You know, with that jersey on, she's still attractive, but when she took that jersey off, it became a whole different thing. But what was you about to say?
Yeah, I think that thinking back to the pieces we're talking about young people are, like we were at some point, exploring who they are and figuring out who they are. And I think that there's another dimension of it here is that we have to interrogate, like, you know, people who have children. I don't have any children. I have, like, you know, nephews and nieces. But I know that as parents, sometimes parents can be like, I have a vision for my child of what I want them to be. And any parent will tell you that at some point in your journey, you have to recognize this is a person whose journey is not about you, but it's about what they want to be, and the struggle with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can be very clear that my parents had no clue of the direction I went, and maybe they had a different vision for me. But a part of, I think, of parenting, of nurturing a child, is accepting that their life is their own. And how do I support them in making choices that are protecting themselves, being well for themselves, whatever they show up in, however they show up in their sexuality and their gender, you know, and centering that as opposed to like, this is where I want you to be and who I want you to be. More of like, I want you to be ethical, I want you to be responsible, I want you to be careful and protect yourself, you know, as opposed to I need you to be a masculine man or a certain kind of woman or have kids by the time you're this, you know what I mean? Because those things, children, as you all know, children are literally born to parents to defy those things. Like, you know, to show you that, like, I'm going to be who I am, you know?
So question for me is, growing up the way that you grew up, what representation or lack of representation did you see in the media, right? Because KP was talking about that, like, you see girls will see basketball players on TV, but they only see LeBron. They barely see anybody in the WNBA. Growing up, young, black, non-binary, what representation did you or did you not see in the media?
Yeah, when I was young, I was just gay. It wasn't even like none of that language, right? Like, you know, it was like, this is gay ass nigga. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it was, right? So that's the thing too, right? Okay, naming that.
Nigga's real.
Right, like, you know what I mean? But growing up, there was nothing. You know what I mean? I think that's one thing that's always fascinating to me. People like, you know, there's so much on TV. Now people be like, I've been watching straight shit for 40 years, niggas. Like, I mean, like, it has not, like, I did not grow up watching gay niggas on TV. Like, that was not a thing in 1981. Like, you know what I mean? So the idea that, like, you know, watching something will trigger that in you or activate that if it doesn't exist within you, it's kind of absurd, right? Like, you know what I mean? I think it's a lot of fear. It's just a lot of fear of control. Like, I want to control the narrative. But no, I didn't grow up. The images I had, you got to think about it. The images I saw growing up and the things that I heard, even from my father was a military man. You know, 40 years in the military, retired to work for the military some more. That nigga was like, I'm in it. You know what I mean? Like, this was not like, and you know, what I saw from him and his friends and what I saw, I think the first kind of images I saw of gay people was, do you remember Living Color? And they had those two guys, Yes Ma'am, or whatever that was. That was, yeah, exactly. I hated it, right? I had those, right, exactly. Those are kind of the only images I saw, and I knew from my dad's reactions, from other people's reactions, that was disgusting. And so for me, a long time, I was very, you know, I was like, I don't want to be something that people hate so much. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that. And so it was very confusing for me. Not because there was no media, there was no LGBT alliance at the school. That wasn't even a thing, homie. Like, none of that was happening. And so for a lot of folks of our generation, we struggled. You know what I mean?
Even then, like you said, In Living Color, it was a caricature.
Right, it was character. It was meant to be derogatory in a certain way, right? It was to let you know, like, look at these faggots. Like, you know what I mean? Make it feel bad, poke fun at them. And that's what we were trained everybody was supposed to do. And so, like, then you're thinking, like, wait, I might be attracted to guys. Does that mean I'm that?
Do you have to look
I have to look like that. And even if I don't look like that, people are going to say that I'm that. I'm still undesired as that, which is really hard for a lot of queer children. Like, I think for myself, to be honest, like, there is a unique kind of like loneliness and depression that I think queer and gay children go through when you know that like your parents don't want you to be who you are. Or when you know that like your community in school doesn't want you to be who you are, when people actually hate what you are.
That's fucked up.
And like, and you're still trying to figure out, man, science and math and like, hormones and what's going on. And yet you're getting this message every single day from the world around you. And there's a lot of kids still getting that. You know what I mean?
So question to you on that. So when you grow up around that and you have these feelings, I'm sure as a parent, hopefully they didn't know that's what they were doing or the effect they was having, right? So as a parent, you want to at least guide your kid and have them just be the best version of themselves that they can be. So it's kind of tough. One, identifying if your child is struggling with that, and then like you said, like this is who I am. And I remember as a kid just growing up, like I don't know who I'm figuring it out.
You figure it out.
So it's kind of tough as a parent to kind of guide them, like, yo, you figure it out, but I don't know what tools to give you to even help you figure it out.
Yes.
In the LGBT, it's not my community. I think it's those are communities within communities, right?
Right.
It's not just, oh, he's LGBT, so it's just
a broad,
all one
Right.
thing, broad brush. Those are communities within communities,
Right.
and they have different challenges.
Yeah,
different
just
Like everybody in that.
Oh, you might be gay? Here, go talk
Right.
to this trans thing.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
That shit don't work.
but that's
How do I navigate
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
How do I find it? What age is that appropriate to introduce them to stuff like that?
So I think that like the piece I like to encourage people to think about is that like you won't have all the answers, right? Like, as parents, never have all the answers, right? There's always conclusion. And it's more about like, how do I support my child? First of all, two things. Understand that sexuality is a journey. I think we tend to think about sexuality ends at a certain age and we just know who we are. But there are people who might be 45 and be like, maybe I'm bisexual, or maybe I'm straight. Like, or maybe I'm whatever, right? It's a journey for some people. Some people are very clear in some point of the journey, and some people experiment and try new things and come to a different place. It's very different. So I think it's important to know that. So of course, I don't expect always a 13-year-old to know exactly everything about their journey. They get to like figure things out and explore. I think the piece for me as a nurturer of children is to be like, okay, how do I support you in being safe and taking care of yourself? How do I protect you in whatever you do? I might not have all the answers about who you are because you don't know yet. You're still a child. And I also want to support you as much as possible in like, any decisions that you make that might harm you, right? Like, I think thinking about it from that perspective as opposed to like, you got to have the answers, you got to be finite because they don't know. Like, I'm thinking about our own lives, high school, college. You have so many things I'm started off thinking I was going to be a basket weaving major. You don't know what you're going to be. Like, it's all kind of stuff, right? You change it up. And so I think just honoring that and being able to be just saying like, I'm here. And I'm listening. I may not understand, I may not get it right, but I'm here and I'm listening. I'm struggling with it. Because I think that I know for me, my parents, I think it's one thing I wanted to say to what you said earlier, and I love that you said that. He's like, you want to protect your kids. I want to be very clear. When my parents were not happy about me being gay, they thought they were protecting me. Right? Because they're trying to protect me because they're like, you don't want to have him something else on them. So like that's their idea of protection from what they knew, right? Now they look back and they can be like, okay, that wasn't the route. We wish we would have did it differently. But that was all they knew. And sometimes it's about we just use the tools that we have. And so much of like the way our organizations work is about giving us more tools so that we can be like, okay, I don't like this that much, but I love you. I got to figure it out. I'm working with it. I'm struggling. You know what I mean? But I still want you to be able to come here for dinner. I still want you to know you're my son, you're my daughter. But yeah, it's hard for me. And sometimes that's the reality we need, to know that dad and mom are still there, even if they struggling with the fact that I might be wearing 9-inch heels or I might be in a jersey.
Nice.
I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that they're still present, because that's the part that's important.
I think,
All right,
and
Hope, final thoughts. You can go first.
I was gonna say,
We're going to break it all down.
my last final thought on that was just like,
All together. Give me
right. All together. My biggest thing is Dwayne Wade in that whole situation, where his child decided they were trans, or they were going to be called she as opposed to he, and he was super supportive of it. And a lot of black males in our community are just like, oh, D Wade is gay. Now he's gay because he's doing all this other stuff, but he's just being there for his child, regardless of however they identify. And for me, that was very, I don't want to say pivotal, but very important to me to learn to be like, you know what, I don't care, and I hate saying I don't care, but it doesn't matter how my child identifies, they're still my child, and I'm going to respect that and take care of them. And that's my biggest thing. If there's something to take away from tonight, is to make sure you just love your kid, man.
I want to go to what you said about that situation, because when I first heard it with the Dwayne Wade situation, I was like, damn. But then I'm thinking, if it was a normal person without any type of money, he would have to deal with more than Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade got money, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
And that's kind of how I took it at first, but then like realizing how when, like if you heard him speak about the child, you're like, oh, well, he really accepts it.
Yeah.
And that's the point, like you said, love your kid, but accepting who they are. But like when we spoke about college and are we making our kids go to college, like we're setting that expectation that you have to go to school. We're setting expectation where you have to be straight. Like, you know what I mean? No problem or no matter what, but when does it come to a point where you have to change that? And that's where it goes. Like the change needs to start, and it's hard because like we all said, we're not used to that. So I'm agreeing with you, just love on your kids no matter what you know they want to go through, because that's going to be their life in the long run. As long as you support them, I think you'll be good.
Go ahead, Dre.
First, man, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
A couple things. One, on the masculinity thing is I really loved how you broke down what masculinity is. I think it takes a lot of work, ongoing work, to just be a well-rounded human being and realize there are many things and factors that make a human being who they are. Again, we're in a world of gray and a world of nuance. What you think is one, something should be some way, that's not how the world works. The other is, when it comes to kids, don't have kids if you don't want to do the damn work. Because I can have the tool, but if I don't use the damn tool, then what's the point of having it? Right? So it is I'm blessed to have my kids because they have made me be more open to new ideas and new thoughts, and it's made me a better human being.
Right. Cool. Final word, man. What you got?
Yeah. I want to touch on the piece you shared about Gabrielle and Dwayne Wade's child, and because I read a lot of Gabrielle Union's books, and I want to name that, like, you know, she talks about when what can I remember her name?
Zaya.
Zaya, I think Zaya. Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Well, when she first, kind of shared it with them, they were like, whoa. So it wasn't immediate, right? Like, you know, we see the immediate, like, because they were clear that they need to get to that point, but they still had to be like, okay, this is, how do we figure this out? So like just honoring that there's still a process, you know what I mean? And it's beautiful that he stood by his daughter, and he's very clear about that, you know, and just naming that piece. I think closing thoughts is, we have the opportunity to heal, to transform patterns, to expand the range of what it means to be a masculine and black man. We have the opportunity to show fathers, grandfathers, uncles, kids that being your range, because racism told us, because I want to understand that like black masculinity was formed by racism, okay? White people were like, niggas only angry and horny, and that's the acceptable because they're brutes and they're a subhuman. That's literally white supremacy that taught us this. Right. And at some point, we started to internalize it. And now we're like, you're right, only real niggas don't cry. When they were like, they had to create that myth and that story to make us the brutes to justify enslaving us. And so a part of us reclaiming our humanity as black men and masculine folks is really about saying, no, nigga, I'm more than this. Correct. I'm a full fucking range of a person. And I'm gonna make that space, that range for my child, for myself. I'm gonna struggle with it, because anything that you cut off for a long time, coming back, it's gonna hurt. But that work is healing, that work is like anti-racism, and that work is help making a new way for all of our kids and ourselves.
Man.
It's work, put in the work.
Shit, I don't know how to follow that at all.
Just heal yourself.
Just say, well, I appreciate y'all.
So on our sign out, what we usually say is we watch when we in this together. But I think today, that together word is huge. We have to do this shit together. There's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of shit that's being said to steer us in any kind of direction that they want us to be going. But like you said, it's about growth. It's about us teaching and learning and education and being able to accept. Shit might not go the way I planned it, but like Drake said, there's tools that you gotta use to teach your kid, to be there for your kid, you know, the understanding and things like that. My man, we got programs and stuff that you can go talk to somebody if you can't talk to a teacher, a coach, a family member, a friend. You know, there's things out there that we can do to steer you in the right direction so we can have a bunch of positivity. But go ahead.
Real quick, if we wanted to get those resources, how do we get there?
Check out our website. It's Beam, as like a light beam, beam.community. It is not a .com, it's a .community because that's what we're trying to build. You go to the website, you can find tools and resources and videos you can download. We have groups. We have a group called Black Masculinity Reimagined. It's full of nothing but brothers and masculine women, other folks who are trying to figure out how to do it differently. And so I recommend people check it out. Workshops, training, conversations. We got like a Twitter space coming up, you know, Twitter audio, and it's all about supporting Black men and boys with grief and loss. And it's led by this great guy, Dr. Alan Lipscomb, and Dr. Nicole, Patrice Nicole. So check it out. There's spaces we're making for us to kind of heal.
And there it is. Once again, we all washed. We are in this together. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.